So he's explaining to understand why Yetzias Mitzrayim still figures as a comparison to the Gula, the final Gula, notwithstanding the fact that they are incomparable. So first you have to understand, he said that number one, Kriya Samsov was not necessary in terms of neither destroying the Mitzrayim or removing an impediment to their journey. Rather, it was an experience they needed to go through as Achon for Matan Torah. Likewise, the splitting of the river is going to be Achon for Terasa Shemashiach. Now, what's Terasa Shemashiach? That's the Aren on the floors. In the words of the Zohar, it is explained by the Ramez, Zara Davron, which means Pnimius Abba, which is bound up with Pnimius Atik. So in order to be Mekabel, this revelation of Pnimius Abba, Pnimius Atik, so we have to go through the Bikiyas Hanor. What is this level of Pnimius Atik? So he says that one of the main qualities, of the main quality of Mashiach is Moirech Vadoin. He will smell and judge, just by aroma alone, without having to investigate. So what's the meaning of aroma, of Reach? It's explained that, bottom line, Reach is connected with Pnimius HaMoichin. The mouth is animated, energized by the heart, he says. The mouth is the gateway to the heart. The Hevel Halev becomes the Dibur. The Dibur comes from the Hevel Halev. Now, even though when you speak, you can speak words of Seichel, but that's the content you put into the words. But the words themselves, the Chaymer Ha'oisius, comes from the Lev. Whereas Reach, the faculty of aroma, to smell, so this is connected with Pnimius HaMoichin, not Stam Moichin, but Pnimius HaMoichin. And what's the difference between Chitzonius HaMoichin and Pnimius HaMoichin? The difference is similar to the distinction, both coming from the Moyach of Seichel and the Tippa, that the Seichel is Ashpach Chitzonius, as we explained yesterday, the whole nature of Seichel and the way Seichel is given over. Mashenkin, the Tippa comes from the Pnimius of the person, which is why the child can be like him in totality and even more than him. Now, that's what we're up to. But Idr Rabbi is up by the number 19 in the text. The Idr Rabbi, which is a section of the Zohar, so the two cavities shebechoitam of the nostril so michad, one of them is nukva chayin, is the cavity of life, and michad, and the other nukva chayin de chayin is the cavity of and expresses the life of life. What does this mean, chayin? What's chayin de chayin? Pidish Bazeh, but the number 21 is Gimel. Pidish Bazeh, an explanation is interesting here. Not the way it's written in the Sefer Kol Barama, El Kedis B'Ksovim, but like it says in Kisvei Chassidus. This is a quote from Ayin Beis, and for some reason the Rebbe Rashab has to say this, and the Rebbe has to repeat it again. It's not the Pirish of the Zohar. It's not like it says in Kol Barama, which is a Pirish on the Idr Rabbi, written by a Talmud of the son of the Arizal. His name was Tzemach, the author of this Kol Barama. So he's saying it's not like his Pirish. I know what his Pirish is, I don't know, but he says this is what the Pirish is. He may have it the other way, I don't know. That the right side, the right ventricle, the right nostril, that expresses, from there comes out chayin. In Pashtus, he has it the other way around. And the left one is the higher one, reaches higher chai in the chai. As is known that Gevura reaches deeper than Chesed. As we've explained on a simple level, to contain oneself takes more energy than to express oneself. And this is by divine design, because the Eibishter wants us to know at the end of the day that where he's concealed, he's more present. At any rate, that was just a parenthetic comment to explain why Minekeva Smoli is Dafka Chai in the Chai. So we see here from the Ider Rabbi the greatness of the inyan of the nostril, of the aroma, the faculty of smell, that it draws on the etzem achayis, chayin, life, and even higher chayin to chayin. What is that? Shem beis amakifim the chayin the yichida. Chayin stam is chayin, and the life of life, makif the makif is yichida. Which and this is reflected in halacha that the etzem achayis is dafka where, not in the heart, but in the breath, in the smell, the chaytam. And not just the breath in the mouth, but the breath in the nostril. It says in Gemara, the halacha is mishnah of Allah mapeles on Shabbos. In regards to Hilchas Shabbos and Yom Kippur. So a wall collapsed on him, so tzrichim, and you don't see any signs of life if they keep on going, even if the heart's not beating. Tzrichim livdek and mimachalal as it was Shabbos and Yom Kippur ad chaytmai to the nostril. Meaning, the Gambi Machayis and Indikabiliba, even if you don't find any sign of life in the heart, become Mokim, Yochaliyos, Sheshchais Bechaitem, as Rashi explains, it could be that there's still life in the nostril, which shows that the Etzem Machayis is there. Because the nostril is the Keli, the Kli to the Neshama. Shal Yodoi, who am Shochas, and Neshama Beguf, it's through the nostril that the neshama is drawn into the body. Which of course, like it says about Adam Arishim, Yipach Ba'apav, and he blew into his nostrils, Nishmas Chaim, a living soul. And therefore also, V'gam B'tziis HaNeshama Me'agufa M'derech HaChayta. And therefore, the neshama leaves the body also the same way through the chaytim, through the nostrils. Now we just learned the b'chaytim, Gufa Yeshchilik B'nekavay Mon L'nekavah Smali. So the chaytim itself, there's a difference between the right and the left. The difference is, I've got to get this clear because it's all to explain the Etzma Moishe. Pnimius Abba, which is bound up with the Pnimius Adik. So he says like this, that the right side, that's the Gilui of Klolos Chayes and Nefesh, the general life force, L'hachis is aguf, to animate the body. This is the breath. Shemeir al hachayis. The breath indicates he's alive. The process of breathing. The Hashem, just like shachai shebelev. The life, there's a movement. Just like the life force of the heart, of tfika, the heart pumps, the heart pumps. Yeah. There is this to and fro movement. So to the life force of the chaytim is in a way of breath. It's a to and fro movement. This is the right side of the heart. Now comparing this to the heart, right side of the nostril, sorry. The right nostril, like the heart, is also Rotzev V'shuv. Elo, Shachai Shebechaytim Naliyosem Achai Shebelev. The life force in the nostril is greater, higher. Achai Shebelev, the life force in the heart that is pumped out via the blood and the oxygen and so on. Hu Achai Shebechayim Pnimi. This is already a life force that's tailored and invested and comes to each limb according to its state. This labish b'varei aguf. This is a life force that's invested and tailored to the limbs of the body. Shazel shalev, and this is what we mean, that ikar achayis, we mean achayis pnimi, not the atzmizdik achayis. The atzmizdik achayis, the essential life is in the nostril, and this will soon see two levels. So what life is the Ikar HaChayis in the heart? It is the life force that's invested by from Pnimi in each limb and organ via the blood vessels, the veins, and so on. That the heart, polig, it turns, it's directed, divides literally to all of the limbs of the body. Whereas in general, the nostril is a general chayis. That's the more makivdike chayis from which the oipnimi then comes. That's all speaking what the right side, the right nostril. Whereas the left one is the very essence. The parallel is like Mal and Sevev and Atzmus. Mal Kalalmin is the heart. Sevev Kalalmin, the parallel is the right ventricle. And the left is the Etzem Achai, Etzem Neshama Atik, which is why we're learning about this. So let's continue. Further elaboration, further understanding. To understand that the mile of the chaytim, of the nostril and its two components, chai and the two levels of life and the life of life, understand the difference between karbonas and ketores. The ketores gufa, and in ketores itself, because karbonas is what? That's obviously the heart, that's the inner organs. And ketores is smell, is aroma. But in ketores itself, there are two levels. There's a difference between ketores of year round and ketores of Yom Kippur, which you make reference to every single day. And we're just learning about it now in Parshas Achrei over and over again, Daka min Adaka. Karbonis are food. Which of course, like the pasuk says, the pasuk describes Karboni lachmi leishai, my korban, my bread, my fire offering, which is a chayis pnimi. Ketores, so reach, and ketores is aroma. What is the mila of aroma, of the faculty of smell of a food is shachila, which is nourishment, pelis, kishan, neshama, gufrach, b'derech harogil. Food causes and maintains the connection between the body and the soul under normal circumstances. Then you don't need to, the inyan of reach. One eats and drinks, and that's sufficient. When do we need the inyan of reach, of the aroma? Mashen can be alphos, with the shomef, when a person faints. The etzem is there, but the kololas achais is departed. As a tzorich then you need the aroma. You have to draw on a transcendent, not a pnimisdika level, because the pnimisdika levels have departed. So you have to draw on the makiv, through which his soul will be restored to him. And here we see the mile of reach teires over karbonis, which is achila. Now with the two levels within teires. In reach, bereich, the ketores atzmai, but in the aroma of ketores itself, yeah. Yeshchili ben akteres, the chalashon akteres in Kippurim is between the year round and Yom Kippur. In the reich akteres, the chalashon, the ketores year round to be klolos in general, dogmas analogous to inyan achila. But what kind of achila? Not the usual achila. Ela should bring an achila gufa. But in this kind of nourishment, this food itself, it's a much loftier level. And what's the analogy to that? Medication. Like medicine, it's food, you ingest it. But it's a whole different order of food. It's a much higher kind of food. Like we see the difference between food, between refuah, medication and food, both in the actual samamonim, the sound, not the what's the word in English?
The medicine.
That's a general term. It's refuah, but some means it means it means it's a term they use for drugs. And also in the nature of the food itself and its effect. How so? So there's certain kind of drugs. To take them normally, it's injurious. And then even when you have to take it, it's required for the health purposes. He's ill. It's going to be very small. Because one drop of a drug, the chazik agufi yoser has much more power to strengthen the body. Than a much greater quantity of food, and therefore one must take it in very small quantities. So we see that in the actual food itself, and the effect of klolos ulus arafua, and the effect of the drugs in yonder lifel amshachas achayis v'gam b'matzav shel chayli. And it can affect the change in the person even when he's sick, which food can't help him then. When does he have food? That's to maintain and bring the life force into the body under normal circumstances. But what's the power of the refuah? In yonder he can bring the life force, the soul, restore the soul to the body, even when he's sick, which is not the usual condition. And he adds in brackets, is it not only not usual for the person, God willing, is healthy, but it's not even usual in the history of humanity. It's a chiddush. But Yaakov is the first person that the pasuk says, and your father is sick. Avram was the first to get old, but the first one to get sick was Yaakov. The way that Hashem created nature, there's no sickness altogether. So the whole thing is an aberration. And therefore, then you need linyan of refuah. So it comes out that refuah, medicine, draws on the makif of the nefesh, which is higher than that level of the guf that is drawn bepnimius. For that, the ordinary food is sufficient. But that's not what the food, the medication addresses. It doesn't address the pnimis dikechayis. It addresses the klolas dikechayis, which is weakened as a result of the illness. So, not mistake. So this is the analogy to the reach, the k'toires. Shemamshich m'b'chines ha'makiv. It draws on the makif ella. Talking about the right ventricle now. We're talking about k'toires year round. Shezel b'chines makif ha'shayich l'pnimi. This is a makif that's connected to the pnimi. B'chines makif d'chayim. Then there's the k'toires of Yom Kippur, which is daka mina daka, which means it's even less like ordinary food. It's even finer. It's even more refined. That's the etzem dikechayis. By the way, this is the whole parallel to this whole new homeopathy, which the kud of it is the etzem achai, the smaller, the more effective, because it's about the essential being of life as opposed to any manifestation like food or even ordinary medication. Either yes or no, but that's the theory of it.
Regular medication.
I don't hear.
Regular medication is also concentrated.
He said that, but it's still a food. He's still ingested as a food. He's still ingested as a food. So it's similar analogy to the k'toires of year round. Excuse me. Okay. Aval, v'amidis in hareach shemel gam dis alphos, but the true in of reach that helps not just for a weakening of the body and illness, but fainting. So for this, you need to draw on the etzem achayis in yonu shal yodeh nimshach b'chinas makiv di yichida. Here we have to draw on the makiv of yichida, the essence of the neshama. So what is all this in avodah? Ve'inyan ba'avodah the hinei klolos avodah mitzad ha'makiv shel b'keiches pnimiyim. So obviously, it is not addressing the regular avodah, which is represented by karbonos. Achila is learning Torah, doing mitzvahs, understanding. Doing mitzvahs, that's understanding. Learning is lechem, and mitzvahs are levushim. That's the general avodah. Seichel amidas. Then is the inyan of what? Of ketores. So what is avodah? Avodah the rusa the liba. This is high than the keiches pnimiyim, then seichel and midas. Then the mind and the heart. It's the rusa the liba, the desire of the heart. There's two levels within the Pnimiyus Halev. The first one is because was born in Belikus. He's misborn and in godliness. How godliness is utterly beyond creation. And he appreciates the inseparable gulf between all and the worlds, even the loftiest relative in the face of the Ein Sof. So therefore, what is his prayer? So this is prayer. This is, he turns the illness into virtuous illness, the love sickness that he wants to be, and he's aroused with the desire to be incorporated in the likus. You can see the hemshech to the memorim of Idalef Nissen, the whole Drotze Veshuv. So for also they'll be this level of desire and longing. This is the low level of ketores. This draws on the chaya. This is the right ventricle, the right cavity of the nostril. This is shaykhs the pnimius. Why is it shaykhs the pnimius? Again, the parallel would be medication. That's food. It's a kind of food. Pnimius. He's being misbinded on the great gulf and the ein haroich sheba ilamus. Nonetheless, mekom his whole starting point is he's in the world of holiness. He's in a beautiful place. Olim is the kedusha, spiritual, lofty, and sacred worlds, but it's incomparable. He wants more, greater, even incomparably greater. However, which is the ketores of Yom Kippur, which is Chaya, which is the neck of Asmoli. So this Sheba Mitzad HaMeitzah, it's a din of Gevura. That's the smile, the left. The first one is Chesed. On the contrary, he's in a beautiful place, and he's longing for higher and deeper. It's all Chesed, beautiful, and it's all Gilui. His matziv is a matziv of Gilui of Chesed, and he wants to go higher. But here it's Smoli. And what's the avodah here? Mitzad HaMeitzah, on the contrary, it comes from a place of constraint, of narrowness, but to know what the tshuva, he's not in a good place. Olim is the kedusha, and he wants more. He's in a place that he has to utterly break out of. Avodas HaTshuva and Meitzad Merirus reaches the soul, touches the soul much deeper. And it's interesting, marshal in a minute. When a person is embittered, it reaches even deeper than tainug, than experience of pleasure and delight.
It's a bigger pleasure itself.
It's not a tainug. It's not a tainug. So he's not saying it's a tainug, it touches deeper. There is a kind of a time, as you'll see. We'll see in the Moshel. I never saw this Moshel before. Someone jumping over a ditch. So there's people standing around it. It's a big competition. So he has a big tainuk to show his koyach and his gvura. He can skip and jump over the ditch, etc. Nonetheless, there is a b'midah v'agbolat kama sheyesh b'koyach l'dalik. So how much can he go? As much as he can go. As much as he has the koyach to jump, he jumps. What do we find? We find in life, when a person is in a place of danger and his very life is threatened, or his child is threatened. So then, all of a sudden, there's koiches he didn't even know he had. He can even jump over a greater pit. So this is a kind of a tainuk that he survived, but it's not the tainuk he's smiling, it's a ribbon. It's a very atmistic tainuk that's not nisgala. Sometimes Chassidus does bring another mashal, or the reverse of contracting. Literally, the people got into scroll places to escape persecution, the Nazis and the war and so on. You go back there and just how did they get in or get out? But because of the desire to survive, the body contracted. Not possible under normal circumstances. So the Moishe ben Nimshal, so what's the dogma the Nimshal? Sharus the liba, the desire that comes from tshuva, shemitzad ha'meitz dafke, because his matziv is not a good matziv. And you got to get out of here. It's not he's in the early Mr. Kedusha and he's got a big appetite and he wants more. It's not a question of a big appetite. It's the matziv is no good. So magaz ba'oimek hanefesh yosef, that draws on the depth of the neshama much deeper. B'chinas makiv the yechida. This is the makiv of yechida. And in light of this, understand that between the ketores of the whole year and Yom Kippur. The ketores b'chlal ketores in iskashus. The word ketores ketura means to tie up. V'inyan kutra ilah, that's the lashon hazaya, the supernal knot. Shehu b'chinas atik, that's the level of atik. Atik is bound up inseparably with the Eibishter. And moreover, behind the b'chinas atik, Klola says kashrus, doirin sofim b'olamis. Atik is the knot that binds the Eibishter with creation. That's the kvetch here. That atik, not atik itself is, but atik is the means by which it ties creation with the Eibishter. Which means in simple language, atik is where God expressed his desire to want to be revealed in creation. That's the connection, God's desire. Oid itself is absolutely divested of all limit. What shaykhs with creation? It's only because he desires it. So the first stage in the process of the connection of the Eid Sof with the Olam is through Atik. So the word Atik means removed. Atik Yom in ancient of days means days bygone. So there, even though the Eibishter expresses his desire for Dira B'Tachtoni, but nonetheless, at that level, he's still not manifested at all. There's no Tachten. There's still a whole process that has to continue from there. And there it has to be drawn into Arich, into the manifested will. There's the desire, then the will. Which becomes the source of Atzilus and so on. Now, B'chinas Atik Gufa Yesh Beis Madregis is two levels in Atik. Etzem B'chinas Atik is Shaykh LaArich. Is the Etzem we're talking about? and etek and atik, which is shaykh tarikh, that's the two, the mini and smally. That's Ketores year round and Ketores Yom Kippur. But Zefer Sheben Ketores the Chol HaShana, Ketores Yom Kippurim. Ketores the Chol HaShana, the Ketores of the whole year, the Rusa de Li'iba. Ubchines Atik Shaykh Larich, that's the lower level of Atik. That's Shaykh to what the Arich to Rotzen. Ubavoid Ubchines Makiv the Chaya. In Avoid, this is the Avoid of Chaya, which he said before. In Avoid, that means he's in the Olim is the Kedusha and he wants to go higher. But Ketores Yom Kippurim, Shavoid Yom Kippurim in Atshuva, Yom Kippur is Tshuva. Rusa Delibish is Nas Mitzadam Meitzer Dafke. This comes Dafke through the Meitzer. The paradox is that it draws on Pnimis Atik. Why? Because the Pnimis HaKavana is what? Your Tshuva, which means your failure, and the Tshuva which will come. That's the Pnimis HaKavana. Not Averitz Tzadikim, which draws on Chitzonius Atik. The Pnimis Atik is Dafke and the Avodah about Tshuva. Hence, even Tzadikim have to do Tshuva in the end. In Izem Agibechnes Atmos Atik is Dafke, the Avodah of Meitzar. That's the left, the smally, the left ventricle, which is Gevura, which is Meitzar. This touches on Atmos Atik, B'nefesh Adam, Ubchines Makiv the Yechida, and this in the level which is drawn on and revealed in Avodah Tshuva Be'emes is the level of Makiv the Yechida. To be continued, and Bashgacha brought this connected to our story.
The highest level is always connected to the mitzvah.
Always connected to?
With the left. Physically mitzvah, something that comes from the left.
Yeah, because that's Diribet Achtoinim is ultimately in the Meitzar and in the Kabbalah and in the failure and in the brokenness. That's the whole Kavanah.
But it's not a state you can be in.
Huh?
It's not a state you can be.
We don't have to worry about being the Meitzar. We're in the Meitzar. We're here. Our Veda is the Tshuva. And then then there's the Sheva Yipel Tzadik V'Kom. If someday Abish will force the descent. If we don't, most of us don't have to worry about that. We're there.